guys, Anne-Marie here, and today I'm continuing to use it or lose it, where I systematically work through my stash and either use an item up or I lose it by passing it on. And in that spirit, I've been playing with my stencils. I've been experimenting with a variety of stencil techniques because I want to create at least 3 different looks from everything that I keep. So I'm kind of trying out different techniques to make sure I can make at least 3 different unique type of backgrounds with every stencil. So this stencil today that I'm using is Tile Collage. It's a 6x6 stencil. It's by Gina Marie Designs. If you just Google Gina Marie Designs, she has a lot of really cute stuff and it's very reasonably priced, which I super appreciate. I will walk you through each of the 3 stencil techniques I have used to create 3 unique card backgrounds, and then I'll show you how I turn those backgrounds into 3 distinctive but kind of coordinating cards. If you enjoy this series, I have a playlist with these videos and I will continue to add to it as I go. First up, I did a basic ink blending through my stencil, but I did this with a twist. I rotated my stencil on the diagonal. I used a ruler to make sure that it was angled correctly, and then I did have to pick it up and move the stencil a couple of times to ensure I could ink the entire card panel. You do have to be careful when you do that. Really take your time and be sure everything's lined up. There's a very subtle difference in the diamonds in the stencil. Some of them are smaller and alternating ones are larger. And so I had to be sure that I matched them up correctly after I moved everything around. It gives a really fun take on the pattern when you rotate things on the diagonal. This one actually became much more straight. There was a lot of diagonals in the original pattern, and so this one kind of straightened it all out. I blended salvaged patina, squeezed lemonade, and spiced marmalade distress inks in a vertical gradient. So here's my completed card panel. All right, let's move on to number 2. For my second technique, I'm heat embossing to create a resist, but there is again a twist. I used white embossing powder this time, so I was going for a much starker or cleaner resist than my last video. First, I smashed my embossing ink through the stencil, then I covered that in white embossing powder and melted it. But here's where it's different. I smashed my embossing ink all over the entire panel again. This time I also dug out some eyeshadow that I actually have gone through my entire stash of eyeshadow, and I've popped out all of my pans of eyeshadow that I know I won't wear, but I thought were still pretty colors, and I stuck them with my mixed media stuff. I read about this like ages ago. It was suggested that you could just use metallic eyeshadow in place of perfect pearls. Ever since then, I mean, seriously, I read about that like 15 years ago. But ever since then, I've kind of been wanting to play with eyeshadow and Versamark, and that's essentially what we did today. I just created another blended vertical gradient. After I inked the entire panel and used the eyeshadow, which I recommend applying with your finger because that helps set it into the cardstock. After I did the initial application, I then went back with a partly dry wet wipe so that I could wipe off the heat embossed areas, really make that white pop and reveal the whole pattern again. And so there's background number 2. For my third technique, I pulled out my Tombows. Colored pencils would work great for this too. And I colored directly onto my background through the stencil. And the twist here was that I didn't fill in all of the pattern. For this, I decided to focus only on the diamond portions of the pattern. And this gave a whole new pattern. I've got just a whole new look. And so here is my completed card panel number 3 today. So here are all 3 looks that I got. I feel like they're all 3 very different, both in terms of saturation, but also the patterns. The pattern on every single one is different. And then my eyeshadow blending, it lent, the green leaned a little more lime than mint, but that's all right. It still looks good together. So finally, I finished all of these out with an Older Lawn Fawn stamp set, one in a chameleon. I used ink blending and fussy cutting for the chameleon and just stamped and fussy cut the branches, and then I die cut several tiny leaves from just a random leaf die in my stash. I tore the backgrounds in a couple of spots to reveal kind of the sentiment and focal image. This was based very loosely on a Chamel one-page sketch. And those are my cards. All right, that's our second installment of One Stencil 3 Ways. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and next Monday I will be back with another video. In the meantime, I hope you have a scrappy, happy week. Bye.